Ah, why is Kelechi hugging his business partner like that? Auntie Comfort shouted, pointing across the compound with a plate of jollof rice still in her hand, watching Kelechi's arms wrapped a little too tightly, a little too long, around the woman holding the newborn baby, rocking gently side to side the way a man hugs his own wife, not the way any sensible man hugs a business partner. Auntie Patience nearly choked on her small chops laughing. Nobody was laughing 5 minutes later, because right there, walking through the front gate with a gift bag swinging from her wrist and a smile ready for the day, was Esther, Kelechi's actual wife, arriving just in time to watch her husband's warm, lingering hug from across the compound. My people, that Saturday morning, nobody touched the small chops again. Not one person. Now, my people, you may be asking yourself, how does one man find himself hugging a woman a little too warmly, his business partner according to him, while his actual wife walks in through the gate at the exact wrong moment? That is exactly the story I have come to tell you today. And trust me, by the time we reach back to this same hug, you will understand why nobody at that ceremony touched their small chops again. Let me take you back, because you will not understand the full weight of that Saturday morning unless you understand the 5 years that built up to it. Kelechi Maduka was a man that Owerri respected. Not the loud kind of respect you give to a big man with convoy and siren, no. The quiet kind of respect you give to a man who greets elders with both hands, who pays his tithe before he pays his light bill, who parks his car properly even when the whole street is empty. Mama Ejiro, in fact, used to hold him up in church every single Sunday as an example to her own son, pointing across the pew and whispering loud enough for 3 rows to hear. You see that, Kelechi? That is how a responsible man dresses. That is how a responsible man greets. Look at your own trouser, hanging like sagging akamo. But responsible men, my people, are not always what they seem. And Kelechi Maduka was carrying a secret so heavy that if you had put it on a weighing scale, the scale itself would have begged for mercy. It began with Esther. Esther was the first wife, the true wife, the one whose bride price Kelechi paid in full at the family house in Ekenegu, the very house his late father built with his own hands, mixing cement under the sun until his palms grew hard as wood. Esther was soft in her ways, the kind of woman who ironed her husband's singlet before she ironed her own wrapper, the kind of woman who woke at 5 in the morning to boil water for his bath, even when NEPA had taken light and the gas cooker was struggling. She loved Kelechi the plain, ordinary, faithful way that many women love, fully, without suspicion, without a single reason to look over her shoulder. But Kelechi Maduka's transport business kept him on the road, and the road, my people, has ruined better men than him. It was on one of his long trips to Asaba, parked at a filling station waiting for his tank to fill, that he first laid eyes on Kemi. Kemi was fire in human form. She wore heels even to buy pepper in the market. She laughed with her whole body, the kind of laugh that made strangers turn around just to see what was so funny. On the very first day they spoke, standing beside the fuel pump while the attendant counted change, Kemi looked Kelechi up and down and told him plainly, "I don't do wahala, but if you try me, you will see wahala's older sister." And Kelechi, tired of quiet evenings and soft-spoken devotion, found something dangerously exciting in a woman who could match him fire for fire. One visit became 2. 2 became monthly. Monthly became Kelechi renting and later building a 2-bedroom flat for Kemi in Asaba. A flat he furnished slowly, piece by piece, the way a man builds a second life, brick by careful brick, so that nobody notices the weight accumulating. But Kemi, fire that she was not the type of woman who would stay in any man's flat as girlfriend forever. 6 months into the relationship, she sat Kelechi down and told him plainly, "I am not your side attraction, Kelechi. If you want me, you will come with your people and do this the correct way, or you will lose me to a man who will." And Kelechi, who by then could not imagine his weeks without Kemi's fire in them, agreed, but begged her for one condition, that the marriage rites be done quietly, small, with only her closest family present, no announcement, no photographs shared anywhere Esther's people could see them. He told Kemi it was because of office politics and family land matters still being settled in Owerri. A story so smooth that even Kemi, sharp as she was, chose to believe it rather than question a man who was clearly ready to commit. So, on a quiet Saturday, while Esther believed her husband was in Port Harcourt sorting out a truck that broke down, Kelechi traveled to Asaba with Ikechukwu as his only witness, carrying 2 kegs of palm wine and a small bag of kola nut, and knelt before Kemi's father in his own parlor to state his intention properly. Kemi's family, satisfied that a man had come with respect and with wine, accepted him. The bride price was paid quietly, in cash, folded into an envelope rather than displayed on a tray the way tradition usually demands, and the whole ceremony was over in under 2 hours. No music, no asoebi, no photographer, just 2 families and 1 brother standing witness to a marriage that the other wife, 3 hours away, did not know had happened at all. Ikechukwu, God forgive him, kept that secret for 2 whole years, telling himself the whole time that it was family business and not his place to interfere. Now, you would think a man juggling 2 women in 2 towns would eventually sleep, and my people, he nearly did more times than you can imagine. There was the day his phone, the Asaba phone, the one with Kemi's photo as wallpaper, rang loudly inside his jacket pocket while he sat in the Ikemigwu parlor eating Esther's ofensala, and Kelechi had to cough dramatically, loud enough to disguise the ringtone, before excusing himself to check on the generator outside. There was the day Esther found a woman's earring wedged between the car seats, and Kelechi, without blinking, told her it belonged to his junior sister who had borrowed the car last week. A junior sister who, if Esther had thought to ask, did not even know how to drive. 2 Christmases, when Mama Ejiro herself, visiting the Kenegbu house, remarked that Kelechi's phone kept buzzing like person where they run 419. And Kelechi laughed it off as business partners, Mama. You know how transport business be. 2 phones, 2 ringtones, deliberately different so that he would know which life was calling before he even looked at the screen. 2 calendars in his head, memorized so carefully that he could tell you, without checking, that Esther's mother's birthday was the 14th and Kemi's hospital appointment was the 16th. He managed it the way a company manages 2 sets of account books, smoothly on the surface, while underneath, the numbers simply did not add up. 2 years of this balancing act, and then Kemi told him she was pregnant. Kelechi nearly sat down on the floor when he heard it, not from anger, God forbid, but from the sheer terror of what a pregnancy meant. A pregnancy meant a baby. A baby meant a naming ceremony. A naming ceremony meant family, meant aunties, meant photographs, meant the entire architecture of secrecy he had built over 2 years, suddenly having a spotlight shone directly onto it. Kemi, my love, he said carefully, the way a man tests a bridge before crossing it. Kelechi, for the naming, maybe we keep it small. Very small, just close family. Kemi, 7 months pregnant and in absolutely no mood for smallness, planted both hands on her waist. Kelechi, I carried this belly through morning sickness, through swollen feet, through you traveling every other week while I manage alone in this house. I will not name my son quietly like I am ashamed of him. My people are coming, your people are coming, everybody is coming. Everybody, Kelechi repeated, the word landing on his tongue like a stone. everybody, Kemi confirmed, and that was the end of the negotiation. So Kelechi Maduka did the thing that only a man drowning in his own lies would do. He made the small lie bigger to protect it. He told Esther that his biggest business partner in Asaba, the one whose contract had kept their household comfortable for 2 years, he reminded her, tapping the point home gently. He told her, "You know how these big contract men are. If I go and my wife does not come, he would think I am ashamed of my own home. It is politics, Esther, business politics. Dress well, smile, greet properly, and we will be back home before dark." Esther, faithful and completely unsuspecting, and secretly a little proud that her husband valued her presence enough to insist on it, pressed her best George wrapper, plaited her hair fresh at the salon on Douglas Road, and even bought a gift, a lovely white baby set with tiny embroidered shoes for a child she did not yet know was, in every sense that mattered, her own husband's son. And here, my people, is where God himself must have decided that Saturday morning would be a day of reckoning, because Kelechi, wanting to look like a generous son of the soil and knowing exactly how to keep his mother's church friends sweet and unquestioning, he had gone to each of them personally the week before and announced that his transport company was giving back to the community by sponsoring a free trip to Asaba for a colleague celebration. Free bus, free food, free small souvenir at the end, no strings attached. To women like Mama Ejiro and her friends who counted a free outing with free jollof rice as practically a national holiday, the invitation needed no further explanation at all. Certainly, nobody thought to ask why a colleague's naming ceremony required his own mother's entire prayer group to attend 3 hours away. He had personally arranged the Sienna bus to transport them. Mama Ejiro, Mama Nkechi, Auntie Patient, Mama Blessing, Auntie Joy, and Mama Teresa, all 6 of them squeezed into that bus with their Asto Ebi bags and their gele already half-tied, gisting the entire 3-hour journey about everything and nothing. "This Kelechi Sha," Mama Nkechi said, adjusting her wrapper as the bus hit a pothole near Owerri Onitsha Road. "Since when did he start doing business for people for Asaba? I never even heard the name of this business partner before." "Na so life be," Auntie Joy replied, fanning herself with a church program. "Big men get business everywhere. You know if you follow their movement." Auntie Patience, seated by the window, leaned over and whispered, though her whisper carried the volume of a normal woman's shout. "Me, I just dey pray make the akara wey dem go serve no be watery one. Last Obambe I go, the akara tastes like sadness." Mama Teresa, ever dramatic, clutched her chest. "God forbid bad thing. If I go this ceremony and the food not correct, I go faint on the spot. I know the lie." The women laughed, unaware that fate had already arranged for their laughter to be the last light moment of that entire journey. Because 2 stops later, at a junction just outside Owerri, the driver stopped briefly to pick up a passenger who had begged a ride. Someone traveling the same route who needed a lift to Asaba for what she believed was her husband's business partner's celebration. It was Esther. She climbed into that same Sienna bus, greeted the aunties politely, sat near the back and gisted with them the entire way about nothing more suspicious than traffic and fuel prices, completely unaware that she was riding quite literally straight into the middle of her own husband's 5-year-old lie. By the time that bus rolled into the Asaba compound, the canopy was already up, the DJ was already testing his speakers, and Kemi, glowing in a deep wine-colored lace, baby Chidera wrapped in white lace against her chest, stood at the center of the celebration, like the sun standing at the center of the sky, with Kelechi standing close beside her, one arm wrapped around her shoulder in a way that a careful observer might have called a little too familiar for the naming ceremony of a business partner's son. The bus doors opened. The aunties filed out first, chattering, adjusting their gele one final time, immediately spotting Kelechi and his warm, lingering hold on the new mother. An embrace that stretched on just a bit too long, his hand rubbing her back the way a man comforts his own wife, not the way a guest of honor greets a colleague's spouse. And right behind the aunties, still inside the compound gate, Esther stepped down from the bus, smoothing her own lavender wrapper, gift bag swinging from her wrist, scanning the crowd for her husband's face, and finding it, at last, buried in another woman's shoulder.
The whispering began before anyone had even confirmed anything, the way market gossip always moves faster than actual facts. Wait, Mama Nkechi said, gripping Auntie Patience's arm so tightly the woman nearly dropped her small chops. Is that not the woman we picked from the junction? The one who said she was coming for her husband's business partner's naming? Kelechi is the business partner, Auntie Patience whispered back, her eyes darting between Esther and the banner reading, "Welcome to the world, Master Chidera Maduka." So, whose... Mama Blessing, who had been holding her phone up to record the baby for her Facebook page, slowly lowered the phone, her mouth hanging open like a door left ajar. Chineke me. This one is not naming ceremony. This one is court case. Esther's eyes moved from Kemi to the baby to the banner, and something inside her cracked so quietly you could almost hear it, like the sound of an egg giving way under gentle pressure. "Kemi," she said, her voice steady in the terrifying way that a voice goes steady right before it breaks completely. "Whose baby is this?" Kemi, who at that exact moment had not yet understood the storm gathering around her, answered with the innocent pride of a new mother. "My husband's son, Kelechi's son, and my people." The compound went up like dry harmattan grass catching a single spark. Mama Blessing screamed and clutched her chest as though the betrayal had happened to her personally. Auntie Joy, who had been holding her plate of jollof rice protectively through the entire journey and the entire arrival, finally lost her grip and the plate hit the concrete with a clatter, rice scattering across the compound like confetti thrown at the wrong kind of party. Mama Teresa, true to her promise on the bus, began fanning herself violently with her asoebi cap, shouting to no one and everyone, "Chineke! Chineke! I said if the food not correct, I go faint, but see wetin dey happen instead. This one pass food matter. This one na Nollywood double feature." Somewhere near the back, Auntie Comfort had abandoned her jollof rice entirely and was now narrating the unfolding scene to two other women who had just arrived and had no idea what was happening. "You will not believe what your eyes are about to see," she told them solemnly, like a woman introducing the opening scene of a very serious film. And where, my people, was Kelechi Maduka during all this commotion? Kelechi had gone behind the house to fetch extra plastic chairs, completely unaware that the two halves of his double life had just collided in his own front yard. He came round the corner whistling, actually whistling, my people, like a man without a single sin weighing on his conscience, a chair balanced under each arm, and the moment he rounded that corner and saw Esther standing 5 feet from Kemi, both women staring at him with two entirely different flavors of fury, the chairs slipped from his arms and clattered onto the concrete, one after the other, like the sound of his own composure falling apart in real time. "Esther," he said, and his voice came out smaller than a boy caught stealing garri from his mother's store. "Esther, you told me this was your business partner ceremony," Esther said, and though her voice trembled, her spine had gone straight as an iroko tree. "Whose son is Chidera Kelechi?" Kelechi opened his mouth. Nothing came. He closed it, opened it again, and still nothing came. For the first time in 5 years of ready explanations and smooth talking, the man had absolutely no words, and the silence stretched so long that Mama Ejiro, standing near the canopy, muttered under her breath, "This one don't enter over time." It was Ikechuku, Kelechi's own younger brother, who arrived at that precise moment carrying a crate of malt on his shoulder, took one look at the frozen tableau and made the mistake of speaking before thinking, "Ah, bros, what did they happen here now?" And then, following everyone's eyes to the banner, to Esther's face, to Kemi's face, understanding crept across his features slowly, painfully, like sunrise breaking over a battlefield nobody wanted to fight. "Kelechi, Kelechi, you never tell Esther? Tell me what, Ikechuku?" Esther's voice cracked clean in half.
"You knew?" Ikechukwu, caught between brotherly loyalty and the truth staring him directly in the face, hesitated 1 second too long, and that hesitation told Esther everything his mouth refused to say. The gift bag slipped from her wrist and hit the ground beside Kelechi's falling chairs. 2 years, she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. 2 years I have been ironing your singlet, warming your bathwater, praying for your safe travels, while you had a whole other wife carrying your child 3 hours away? The aunties, who had been whispering among themselves like a choir tuning up before the real performance, could contain themselves no longer. Mama Ejiro stepped forward first, hands planted on her hips, addressing the entire compound as though she had personally been appointed judge for the day. Kelechi Maduka, Kelechi, is this how your father raised you? 2 wives is not a sin. Plenty men carry 2, 3 wives, and their households still stand strong today. But you know why those houses stand? Because the wives know about each other. Because there is order. You hid this woman like she was a curse, and you brought her to a naming ceremony without warning either of them, and you expected the 2 of them to just what? Not meet? Kai, foolish man wearing a responsible man's clothes. Foolish, Mama Teresa echoed, fanning herself so hard her gele nearly came loose entirely. I told you, Mama Nkechi hissed to Auntie Patience. I told you that phone was doing overtime work since Christmas. Kemi, meanwhile, had finally understood the full shape of her situation. And unlike Esther's quiet devastation, her anger arrived loud and immediate, the fire in her simply catching properly for the first time. You told me your family did not know about us because your mother was still mourning your father. Mourning for 2 years, Kelechi. Which kind of mourning is 2 years? You have a full, entire first wife in Owerri, and you brought her to my son's naming ceremony without telling either of us she was coming. I was going to tell you both, Kelechi stammered, sweat now sliding freely down his face despite the morning breeze. I just needed the right moment. The right moment? Esther's voice finally found its full volume, sharp now as a well-sharpened machete. 5 years, Kelechi, 5 years to find the right moment, and you chose today, my own gift bag hanging from my wrist, standing in the exact same corral as the woman I did not know existed, to let the whole of Asaba discover your foolishness at once. And you have shamed me too. Kemi shot back, momentarily forgetting Esther entirely as her own fury climbed higher. My son's naming day, Kelechi, the one day that is supposed to be sacred, and you have turned it into a market brawl. Everybody here will remember this day, not for Chidera's name, but for your foolishness. For one strange, brief moment, the 2 women, moments earlier strangers, now unwilling sisters in betrayal, seemed almost united against the single man who deserved every ounce of it. Then Esther turned slowly to Kemi, her voice quieter now, though no less pointed. Did you know about me? Kemi hesitated, then shook her head firmly. He told me he was a widower when we met. I only found out about you last year from a mutual friend, and he swore, Esther, that it was finished between you two, that you had left him long ago. Left him? I have slept in that house every single night for 5 years, Kemi. I never left anywhere. By now, the compound had gone almost completely silent, except for the aunties, who had reformed into a tight cluster near the drinks table, whispering furiously, occasionally throwing glances at Kelechi, the way market women eye a goat that has just realized Christmas is coming.
Somebody hold that baby well, Mama Nkechi murmured to Auntie Comfort, eyeing Kemi's trembling arms. Because if either of these 2 women faint from this kind of anger, who will carry the child? Ikechukwu, sensing his brother needed rescuing, even undeserved rescuing, stepped between the two wives with both hands raised in surrender. Please, let us not do this in front of the whole compound. Chidera is innocent in all this. Let us discuss like family. Please. Family? Esther rounding on him immediately. What family, Ikechukwu? How long have you known about Kemi? Ikechukwu's silence was once again answer enough for everyone watching. And it was at that precise moment, because God clearly wanted this Saturday to be complete, that Kelechi's own mother stepped out from inside the house, where she had been resting after the long journey, completely unaware of the storm that had gathered in her absence. She took in the scene slowly. Her son, standing frozen and sweating, two women in identical coral glaring past each other at him, a baby crying somewhere in the confusion, 6 of her own church friends whispering like a marketplace at its loudest hour, and a scattered plate of jollof rice lying on the concrete like evidence at a crime scene. Kelechi, she said, and her voice, low, calm, and far more dangerous than any shouting could ever be, cut through the noise instantly. Kelechi Maduka, the man who managed 2 phones, 2 ringtones, 2 houses, and 2 entire wives for 5 uninterrupted years, finally found his voice, not to explain himself, not to defend a single thing he had done, but simply to say, "Mama, please, sit down first." Which, my people, as anyone raised properly will tell you, is never, ever something you say to your own mother unless you have failed so thoroughly, so completely, that even God is taking notes. The celebration that was supposed to welcome baby Chidera into the world did not continue as a celebration. It became instead a family court right there under the canopy, plastic chairs serving as witness stands, and the abandoned pot of jollof rice standing silent and mournful evidence of a party that never got the chance to properly begin. Mama Maduka, once Ikechukwu, thoroughly ashamed of himself, finally confessed the whole story from the beginning, sat down heavily on a bench and said nothing for a long, long moment before finally speaking.
"So this is where the palm wine and kola nut went," she said quietly, shaking her head slowly. And only then did the compound understand that Ikechukwu had also confessed the secret wine carrying in Asaba, 2 years buried, and now dragged fully into daylight. 2 years, Kelechi. 2 years your own brother carried this weight on his back for you, and I, your mother, was kept in the dark like a stranger in my own son's life. Your father did not raise you to build a house on top of 2 women's ignorance and call it peace. He raised you to sit with your chest open even when the truth is heavy. Look at what your hiding has cost. A wife weeping by the gate. A new mother shamed at her own son's naming. A brother who could not look either woman in the eye. Is this the family name you wanted people to carry home in their mouths tonight? Esther, tears finally falling freely now that the shock had worn thin enough to let real grief through, looked once more at Kemi. "I am not angry with you," she said softly. "You did not know. My anger belongs entirely to the man who made fools of us both." Kemi nodded slowly, some of her fire cooling into something closer to a fragile solidarity. He owes us both more than an explanation. He owes this child a father who was not built on lies from the very beginning.
By evening, the compound had emptied of its guests, the DJ long gone, the canopy standing over empty chairs, and a cold, untouched cake shaped like a baby's rattle. What remained was a decision that would shake Kelechi Maduka to his very bones. Within that same week, Esther packed her things from the Ekenigbu house and moved in with her sister, telling Kelechi plainly, without shouting, without drama, "I will not raise the rest of my life in secrecy. If you truly want to fix this, you will fix it in the open.
in front of both families the way it should have been done from the very beginning, not after 5 years and one ruined naming ceremony. Kemi, for her part, refused to let Kelechi anywhere near Chidera's daily upbringing until he proved through time and not through smooth words that honesty was something he could actually practice and not merely perform. It took nearly a full year, my people, a year of Kelechi Maduka humbling himself before both families, and a year of his own mother making him kneel properly before both women in the traditional way and beg with his whole chest before any real healing could even begin. In the end, Esther chose not to return to him at all. She said gently but firmly that the trust broken that Saturday morning could not be rebuilt with kneeling alone, no matter how sincere the knees.
Kemi, after long conversations with her own mother and many sleepless nights of her own, decided to stay. Not for Kelechi's sake, but because she wanted her son to grow up with his father by his side. Thank you for watching to the end. But wait, quick one. Should Esther have stayed and fought for her marriage? Or was walking away the only choice left to her? Let's hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye!